Hello. Promotional Products Association International is pleased to present the online educational program, Character Branding Series 404, Create Your Own Character in the Marketplace. My name is William Poole, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. Please note that today's program is being recorded and all participant phone lines will be muted during the broadcast. Today's presentation will last approximately 60 minutes. You may submit your question or comment at any time during the presentation using the Q&A window on the lower right-hand panel of your screen. Immediately following today's webinar, your screen will be directed to an online survey. Completing this short survey will allow PPAI to continuously improve our online webinars to better meet your needs. And now it is my pleasure to introduce today's speakers, Jim Sochi, President of Artistic Toy, and Dr. Gary Kaslowitz, Marketing Professor at Moravian. Jim Sochi has worked with thousands of promotional products distributors that desire to elevate themselves to a level of branding expert or promotional consultant. However, lack of specific resources in the area of branding to turn the corner. With a proper understanding of academic theory behind branding and examining successful case studies, industry practitioners can validate their branding credentials with the fact of not fluff. Whether you are new to the industry or work with the most recognizable brand names in the world, you need a deeper understanding of branding. Gary Kaslowitz, MBA, PhD, is an Associate Professor of Management at Moravian College in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Gary's research and teaching focus on classic and modern marketing principles. His published research includes the use of strategic and tactical marketing for small business enterprises, as well as the use of involvement in gaining trust on a website. Without further ado, I give you Jim and Gary.
Thank you, William.
Thanks, William.
Appreciate that intro. Well, here we are into our fourth and final session together, and today's webinar format is going to be slightly different from some of our previous webinars. Gary and I decided that we needed to do a little more listening and a little less talking. That's something that I think is a little more difficult for us, being the teachers, being the advocates, wanting to, just really share information that we have, about branding, marketing, promotional products. Each of the last three webinars, we planned on leaving about 15 minutes of Q&A time. And for those of you that attended, you know that didn't quite happen. So what we've decided, before we went about 60, 65 minutes, so what we decided today, we're giving you permission to stop us at 30 minutes so we can really go deeper with our participants and helping them apply some of these branding strategies and tactics that we've been talking about for the last 3 months now. We really want to help you apply this in your business. Our goal is to see more attendees complete that survey at the end of this webinar and check off those boxes that say, yes, this information directly applies to my business, and there is something that I can do immediately, and I'm going to do something immediately with that information. So what we look to accomplish today in the next 60 minutes, or should I say 30 minutes, is introducing character into your brand, selecting what it means to be selecting characters for clients, and character presentation ideas. Those are what you can expect to learn over the next 30 minutes, and then following through that, really asking us questions through the Q&A window about some of the things that we've talked about in the past and what we've talked about today as well. So in order to cover our first area of our first objective of introducing character in your brand, we have to again introduce what happened over the last three webinars. We've got a situation here where we have to understand when we use the word character and brand together, what does that really mean? And we're talking about when we use the word character, we're not referring to a toy. The toy or any product for that matter. We are referring to character as integrity. Mm-hmm. And it's you and it's your customer, and it's their role in the marketplace, which is that character. So once we've identified that role, stories can be told, products can be used as props, used to promote the brand in a very effective manner. That is the big transition. I mean, our webinar series, I think, as William did a nice recap and intro for us, is, it really rests on this premise that salespeople in this industry and their clients have some misconceptions into what real branding is. However, they have a sincere, I'll use the word yearning, to deliver more than printed products to their clients. So I would encourage you, if you've missed any of our prior webinars, go back, check out the playback recordings, and get a better understanding. In our first webinar where we talk about the purpose of branding, and then we talk about in webinar 2, speaking the client's inner language, and then 3, the power of story. So those webinars, there's really a lot of meat there that you can really go deeper into branding. So I want to encourage you to do that, but I think just the overall premise of introducing character, into your brand, those are some things that we need to, just put on the table right in the beginning.
Absolutely.
The next thing, as we were developing this last webinar, and we said, hey, we really need to maybe answer some questions that our participants have. So we've got, how does a product salesperson transition into selling brands? And we've also been asked, how do I select a character for my client? Or if you've been on our last webinar, we talked about life-changing stories, and that's really how you develop a brand. But people have said, well, my client really doesn't have a life-changing story. So Gary and I wanted to start off this dialogue with you all with those 3 questions in mind. For the first question, how does a product salesperson transition to a selling brand? That's a hard question to answer, on this, specifically in this webinar. Gary and I have actually co-authored 2 articles. The first one being, selling product, they're selling solutions and not products. That's actually in this the February edition of PPP. So we want to point you to that to get some specific details and some steps that you can take to become what we call the marketing expert or marketing maven to selling solutions and not products. We've also written another article for PPP that will be published in March that will address this idea or this notion about selecting a character for your company or for your client. And the reality of it is, the short story is that, character selection is more like natural selection. Your character is something that needs to evolve over time and be authentic to be effective. So that really answers, the first 2, will help get a better understanding for some of the first 2 questions that we've been asked. And then what I wanted to share, we've got an example that we're going to share with you about the last point. The last question is, hey, my client doesn't have this life-changing story, or I don't know what this life-changing story is that they may or may not have. Now what do I do? How would I create a character brand from there? And Gary, you know the next slide I'm going to pull up here about our hockey team. And, I want to, I guess I'll go through the story about the supplied example, and then Gary, you can tell us why it works.
Absolutely.
Or really how it works.
Sure, how we can use that, absolutely.
All right. So the applied example is the teddy bear toss. I don't know if we have any ice hockey fans out there, but if you are an ice hockey fan, you are probably familiar with the teddy bear toss. It's a popular Christmas season promotion at many minor and semi-pro hockey teams throughout North America. Fans are encouraged to bring their own teddy bears to games, throw them out onto the ice, and when the home team scores the first goal, that's when they're going to throw out all the teddy bears and all the toys. The toys are then gathered up to be donated at Christmas as Christmas presents to hospitals and charities, and in many cases, players themselves personally donate some of the bears to the children at the area hospitals. The Camp Loops Blazers were the first team to start this tradition back in 1993 and 1994. So I put a YouTube link on here. We haven't had a whole lot of success with playing videos, but if you Google or YouTube teddy bear toss, you're going to see a series of teams that have done this and the stories behind it. So I wanted to point that out. Again, we're talking about a tradition that was established that other teams and other organizations have borrowed this to bring character into their brand. And so this has also transitioned for our business into organizations contacting us and saying, hey, we are a sponsor of this team, the semi-pro hockey team. we want several thousand bears with, their logo on, our logo, as you see Dodge as a sponsor, and we want to do a game day giveaway. Maybe we'll do this game day giveaway the day of the event or leading up to the event or as a thank you, but you get to see how this would transition into more products, because we say initially, well, people just brought their own teddy bear. How is that going to turn into product sales, maybe for the promotional products and sold? So this is, I want to share that example with you. And Gary, maybe you can help us understand more about this branding tactic and maybe the strategy behind it.
Absolutely, Jim. I'd be happy to. As we've discussed, Jim and I have discussed, and this is, I think, a really interesting point for everybody listening today. We talked last time about the creation of story and the hero's journey and finding the conflict and all that sort of thing, which is all perfect, and that's a really wonderful thing to do. And yet the natural question then for you would be, if I were you, saying, okay, that's all good, but I'm not an English major. How do I go off and do this sort of thing, and how do I use it in business? So when Jim and I were talking about this example, Jim, I know this is what we had mentioned, and which I think is really clever with this, is what this teddy bear toss does is it takes advantage of a natural story, if you will. This is the use of what I call the use of a ritual. And ritualistic behavior is something critical for us in business and marketing to understand, because when we can latch onto that, then we have inherent drama and inherent story in whatever we happen to do. And so with the teddy bear toss, what's interesting about this is think about, for example, what they're tossing onto the ice rink. It's teddy bears, right?
Mm-hmm.
And teddy bears are associated with children, right? And children are associated with Christmas and presents and Hanukkah and all that good thing. So what we have here is teddy bears, the classical child's toy, being tossed away at Christmas time. We naturally associate presents and children together, and good tidings and good cheer and good spirits and all that. And what happens here is you're tying into this behavior that people make that natural association. So you're finding a product which is authentic, if you will, and it's not going to be one where you're just artificially creating it. I know we'll talk about that a little bit later, but it's an authentic product. It's an authentic tie into the notion of charity and giving and things like that. And what they've done is say, okay, this is a way we can adopt a traditional gift-giving ritual. At the holidays, everyone exchanges gifts. That's kind of a ritual that we're all used to, we're all accustomed to. And in fact, sometimes you're seen as kind of odd if you don't exchange in that custom with people. And so by doing this, they're basically taking the gift-giving ritual that we're all accustomed to and saying, how can I turn that into business? Well, I can turn that into business by putting it onto a larger scale. And that's exactly what they've done here, is they've taken the props, if you will, the product as prop we've talked about. They've taken the prop and they've made it into an extension of a ritual that we're already used to doing, i.e. exchanging presents at the holidays. And by doing this, donating it to charity, you're now contributing something even better, taking advantage of all the feelings we have at the seasonal time. And the ability to do that then, if you're the promotional product specialist in this regard, is saying, oh, well, if I sell teddy bears, this is actually a pretty good thing to sell. And it doesn't have to be teddy bears, that's just the example in this case, Jim, but it could be any number of products that you represent can be tied into this sort of ritualistic behavior where you latch it onto something where people are already making those connections and those behaviors, and now all you're doing is associating your product to the existent ritual, and that's where you have real marketing gold in terms of your sales. Does that notion make sense?
Yeah, definitely. As I thought about this more, Gary, is that you have a situation where you've got these hockey or sports fans, and
Mm-hmm.
they're actually people, right?
Right, exactly.
and you realize them as people, and while they have the desire to watch a very high quality, well played hockey game, they also have intrinsic yearnings, desires
Mm-hmm.
to contribute.
Absolutely.
To contribute to society, to care for other people, and the hockey organization basically takes that desire that they have, they create a story around it, they create an event, the fans get to connect with their on the ice hero,
Mm-hmm.
and then satisfies that yearning, right, to feel connected with their, with somebody they look up to or respect a lot, and then they can also, fulfill a yearning to help others.
Well, absolutely.
Right?
You fulfill those yearnings. You fulfill those yearnings, and also what's interesting with that is because hockey isn't necessarily a sport that a lot of people associate, these rough and tumble fighting hockey players with the teddy bear. And so in a lot of ways, we talked last time about conflict, and that's almost a natural use of the conflict, if you will. Oh, that's incongruent in that regard, but it actually is congruent because, as you're saying, yes, they are people too, and they do care, and they do have families, and they do, love their children every bit as much as the rest of us do. And so that's actually a story writing technique that you can use in business, which is the contradictions exercise, where you show the contradictions in things, and by the contradictions, you create a stronger, more powerful character for yourself, which is exactly what's going on here. The equivalence here is anybody who's ever seen the movie Shrek. I always talk about Shrek as this contradictions exercise. Incredibly successful franchise, all the associated products that go along to it, everything else. But Shrek is an ogre who is actually a good person, because that's the contradiction. Ogres are typically bad. Bad people are typically beautiful. He's ugly and good. And that is the contradiction which they take advantage of. Hey, wait, he has a heart too. And you can use that same sort of notion in this regard. Exactly what you're talking about, Jim, is that yearning is there. And when you see that contradiction, it can be actually a really strong selling point, if you will, when you're positioning your story.
So the contradiction sort of takes place of the conflict of the the hero's journey. What's their conflict?
Absolutely,
there's
right.
a contradiction here.
Exactly.
This is not a normal character.
Exactly.
This is out of character.
Exactly right. Because here's the thing with everybody. Again, like Jim and I said, we want this to be an action-oriented takeaway session, if you will, because it's our last time together. And one thing you can always look for when you're talking with your clients is any naturally occurring contradiction, because the human mind, the human psyche is drawn to conflict. That we can't help. That's how we are programmed. We're drawn to problems. When things are running along smoothly, we barely notice anything. So it takes a contradiction, if you will, a conflict, a problem, however you want to phrase it, to wake us up. And not saying you should be contradictory in terms of your approach to your business, because that's the notion of character, which we say, no, you should be congruent in your beliefs and your philosophies. But contradictions where they arise. In this case, hockey players actually have big hearts. And people, that is true. It's not that it's untrue, but people normally don't make that association, and that's the contradiction, if you will. They normally don't make that connection, even though it has been there and it is there, and it's perfectly plausible for hockey players to have big hearts and want to support kids. Just like the motorcycle groups who do the same thing at Christmas time with the Toys for Tots. It's the exact same thing.
Got it. Very good. Well, I know you want to give us a little bit more background into some of the character roles that we can adopt, and maybe delve into some of those yearnings.
Sure, absolutely.
For an agent story.
Absolutely. Yeah, as we were talking about, Jim, and again for everybody, this is the idea of, when we talk character, as Jim mentioned, and I fully support, we're using it two different ways. The first is the character of integrity. We are both huge believers in integrity marketing, of selling in accordance with who you are as an individual and an organization. And that if you have that integrity, that means you help those people you can help, and if you can't help them, then that's fine. Maybe somebody else can. But you're not necessarily, it's true love, true relationship marketing for your clients. So that's one aspect of character. However, we're often asked the question of the other aspect of character, which I would identify as your role. And so what are the basic roles you can adopt in your character marketing? And what this has to do with is kind of what we alluded to the last time with the story process. It's essentially this real basic question of, what is it you really want? At the end of the day, it's what it comes down to. What is it you really want? What do you really desire? And when you analyze that question, what you find is that there's only about 4 primary motives for most of us at any given point in time. We might want a desire to have some type of stability in our life. We want, things are going helter-skelter, really, really crazy, and I just need some form of stability. And that's a real big yearning that a lot of us share. Conversely, we might have a yearning desire that we want to exert some form of control, that we're feeling out of control, and we want to be able to, really have the sense of it. So it's a little different from stability. It's the notion of, I can make things happen. You might also have a desire to create something. That's another possible yearning that you might have. I want to leave my mark on the world. You might have the yearning that I just want to help people. There's any number of them. Again, there's only 4 really primary ones, and from them about a total of 12 basic yearnings that we all subscribe to at one point in our lives. And when we talk about this, the first thing to do is, well, I'll put a plug in, is to read our article that's coming out in March, because it goes into these 12 rows in much more detail of exactly what they are, what the primary yearning is, and therefore how you can sell to that yearning. So as a quick example, let's say I'm going to sell to, something, I'm promotional products, I'm selling to Jim, my good friend Jim Sochi. And after talking with Jim for many, many months, I know that my good friend Jim really cares about people, and he really wants to help people succeed and really wants them to become the best that they can become. And that is what's really pushing Jim in business, is to really say, hey, I care about you, I want to see your success. Okay? Well, I, Gary, the marketer, would say, oh, Jim, that's wonderful. I can show you how you can help other people achieve more of what you want them to have, and how you can take better care of them. And so when I sell to Jim along those lines, then naturally Jim and I will have a closer affinity, because Jim, I'm selling my services and my props, if you will, as a tool for Jim to fulfill what Jim really wants. And so for everybody out there, the takeaway that I'd like everybody to take action toward is, when you interview, when you talk to your clients, when you go in there, please don't just go in there with the how many bags do you want philosophy. Because, yeah, it might be tempting to do that, but the reality is that's not how a relationship is built. Really get to know the other person. And Jim, I know you have some thoughts on this as well, in terms of, getting to know the other person, how to actually understand what their motives are, and really get them to, what are you all about? What do you want to accomplish here? How can I help you? Think of them as your friends, not as your, money pit. It's the difference between client marketing versus customer marketing. I like to talk to the people I work with and call them my clients, not my customers, because it's a whole different mind shift towards how you treat them, is how I look at it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that the primary motives of promotional consultants and people and salespeople in our industry are they are there. They are about making a difference and helping people and, and maintaining that stability. I think it's just interesting that we get into the routine. We get in the routine of, okay, I've gotten a request for product, and that's what my client wants. They may not want a deeper relationship. I can barely even get an appointment with them, and now I want to stop and talk, and they don't want that right now. So I definitely sense that objection, and and as we stated in the article, I think that's where you need to start to draw some conflict in your story. You've got to be willing to push back.
Exactly.
And say, no, that's not about who I am. Yes, I can deliver these products to you, but I'm about more. I mean, if that's really who your character is, you have to you have to go with that.
Right.
To let that come out.
I'm not just an order taker. I am here as a true marketer, understands, how these products are a solution, and therefore here's how you best benefit to get what you desire out of it. A perfect example with that, Jim, is I took a class to one of my favorite companies, good old Walt Disney, as a part of a class a few months back, and we did get T-shirts for it. And the whole point of the T-shirts wasn't just, well, here, have a T-shirt, but if somebody would have talked to me about it, they would have really understood what the purpose of running the T-shirts for the students was, which is a whole different thing than just, well, here's a T-shirt. And so once you get into that whole mindset of what you're trying to accomplish and how you're their ally, like you're talking about, so yes, you'll take the order, but you want what's best for them. And what's best for them may not be what they think it is initially. It may be something different, and you may have an entirely different product that you should sell them because of what they actually do really need. And that's how the mindset has to be gone about, as you're saying.
Absolutely, and I think part of it is sometimes our own character flaw. We fall into habits. Why are you buying this? Well, we bought it every year. We're going to a trade show.
Exactly.
There's no big surprise in this.
Right.
Can you just get me this price? Can you deliver them by in 2 weeks?
Right.
Kind of thing.
Right. And another part of this, Jim, is with the background talking about the character. We have there the bullet about your brand agents, and just so people aren't confused by that, all the brand agent represents is it's kind of a characterization of your company what is the face of your company? How is your company seen? So promotional products industry, you guys have it. It's wonderful because that's how companies are seen, is through their promotional products. And so what the brand agent is the representation of the company. So you've used examples, for example, like the chemo bears and that sort of things in the past, and the ducks and all that. And those are excellent types of brand agents. And it doesn't have to be just for plush animals. I mean, it can be for any number of things. You could make a toothbrush into a brand agent. And I've seen dentists successfully follow the strategy when I've worked with them in terms of, hey, a toothbrush is a brand agent. And there's any number of things you can do in terms of promotional products, because that's what I love about the industry, is you're able to really represent what their story is through a product properly. Now you have real marketing gold on your hands. And so that's the other thing, too. When you get to know your client and their story, think, what would the appropriate tool be that would make an appropriate representation for this organization? So if I am a pizza shop, what might represent that most effectively in the minds of the pizza shop's customers? And maybe it's not a T-shirt or a wall magnet. Maybe it's something entirely different. But that's where you have to put on your marketing hat of getting to know them, really caring about them, and finding the best solution to help them represent their story too.
Got it. Well, I'm going to try to stay ahead of William here. We got
Absolutely.
Four minutes and one more slide. And as we discussed, we want this action-oriented. We want the participants that are listening in to be able to say, hey, what are some things I should really start doing?
Mm-hmm.
And Gary, you had a slide that you want to put together here for.
Absolutely. Yeah, my 3-minute little lesson, I'll make it 2 minutes. I have 3 things I want you all to do to make this happen for you successfully going forward. 1, 2, 3. First, make your brand stand for something. What I want you all to do, if you're listening to this call, is to write what I call your brand manifesto. And what that means is take a stand for what you truly believe. It's by what you truly believe that you draw people to you and actually, frankly, repel people as well. And in marketing, that's what we want. We want to draw those to us who agree with our message and we can work with, and we want to repel those that we don't, because that's what marketing is. So write your manifesto, and the best way to do that is to say, not what do I stand for, but pick something you stand against. And when you stand against something, you're going to find what you really stand for. What ticks you off? What bothers you in the market with your clients? What is it about the industry of who you sell to, or about your industry itself, that really annoys you, that says, this isn't right? And by finding out this isn't right, you've got the solution, which is the flip side to that. So that's exercise 1. Exercise 2 is I want you to use existing stories where possible. It's real hard to create your own story until you have practice doing it. I won't lie about that. It takes us a lot of time to get to that point. But what we all can do is we can all use existing stories and match onto them. The notion of the ritual we talked about before is something very, very useful. Find those rituals that do you well and that you can actually make something really important with, that you can latch yourself onto. The teddy bears, diamonds, and engagement is a whole other story. Those of you who get my special report will hear all about that. But there's lots of ways to use existing stories and rituals. Find them, use them. And the last thing I want you all to do is to do what I call the 5-minute story creation tool. Think back to your personal lives, your business lives, wherever. And what I want you to do is think back to a really low point in your life. It can be somewhat painful, frankly, but that's okay. Think back to a point where you're just down, where you had your teeth kicked. It was the 9th grade and you got cut from the team, whatever it was. I want you to take that moment in time and then say, what did you do next? What was the very next thing you did after you had your teeth kicked in? And by that, what you've done is you found the inherent conflict in your story, which you are now able to use going forward. That is going to be the genesis of your story that you will sell for branding. So start with a low point. Oh, man, it was so horrible. I was down in the gutter. Because people don't care about when you're successful. They care about when you're down. Remember, we got contradictions. We got conflict. Do that. You'll get your story within 5 to 10 minutes, and now you have a story that people will listen to, and they want to listen to where you've gone and how you succeeded and what you've done to help them.
That's awesome. That is some great action items, for me as well, Gary. I mean, I know those are things that you've mentioned to me, and I need to get my my brand manifesto and go my rant and all those kind of things in place in my creation story. It's somewhat, and actually, when you think about that, it's kind of painful. there's part of that, do you really want to dig up some of those things? But I think from there is that conflict, and you really get clarity over who you are and what you want to become, and
absolutely
and
right.
You can help others with that as well.
Absolutely right. You're not going to sell without conflict, bottom line, because people don't find this as a problem, and the problem is a conflict. So, we have to be willing to accept that. And what we do is we remedy it. We make people feel better through our sales, through our products, through our promotions.
Fantastic. So, William, are you there? All right. I'll wait for William to come back online with us. But what we plan on doing next is really taking an attendee pulse. We've come up with 3 questions, and as soon as William can, he'll put them up. He has, I believe he's got the live polling. We've got 3 questions for everybody that's in attendance. First, we want to know if this is if you've attended any of the other previous character branding webinars. That's pretty much a yes and no question. If you wouldn't mind, go ahead and answering that. Tell us, the next question we have is, what interests you about character branding? So start thinking about that. And is there anything holding you back from talking about character branding, with your clients? Those are, really, I think, where the rubber meets the road, where Gary and I need to, stop talking as much and listen to really what types of questions that you all have. So this might be a short session, Gary. We're not sure. We'll over-deliver, and
That's okay. I'm used to that. People are getting that. It's like looking at the clock at the end of class. Is it time to go? I've seen that.
So William, is there how long do you leave that poll up for? Does it summarize it for you, or?
It only runs for 5 minutes.
The poll runs for 5 minutes. Okay.
Yeah. So it calculates. It goes as the people answer.
Okay. So was it 5 minutes for each question, or how does that work?
No, for all of the questions total. It
okay. So they can just submit to you a response for any or all of those questions, right in a row, and you'll see that.
Oh, I'm getting some messages saying it's not working properly. Let me see.
Okay.
So let's see. Let me.
Well, the nature of the questions is just to spark some thoughts from the attendees. What is it? We're glad that we've gotten a lot of good general feedback. We've gotten some very positive ratings across the board from our attendees, but we want to dig a little deeper, and I think that's the challenge, not only for us, but for all the salespeople in our industry, to really go to the next. We want to know what is holding you back, or what question do you have, based on what you've heard in the past, based on maybe some of the things we talked about today. How are you going to use this, or what would you need answered, in order to go out and apply this? That is one of the questions that's asked at the end of the webinar is, do you find this information applicable to your business? Kind of like yes or no. It's kind of like graded. No, not really. Slightly. Oh, definitely. Well, I think we've been kind of falling more on the slightly. And I think what we want to do is, how do we get to yes, directly applies to our business? And I think in order for us to get there, we need to hear some more of your comments. So, William, have you seen any comments come in?
Yes.
Okay. You want to go ahead and throw the first question out there?
Let's see. Sure. I'll send it over to you there. Did you get that message there?
Is that the one from Jeff Solomon that you just sent over in chat? Okay.
Yeah.
So we have the comment here from Jeff Solomon, MAS. Character building is key to business building. Have integrity and caring about meeting the needs of your clients should be our primary focus. Okay. Well, Jeff, definitely appreciate that. It's we definitely. It seems like we've got some congruence.
Gold star.
With Jeff and exactly what we're talking about. It didn't seem like a question there. But if there's anything more specific, Jeff, that you see for applying this to certain clients, or please help us by expanding a little bit more into specifically how do you think you would apply this?
Right. I guess, Jim, with what you're saying here, that what we're asking for is, this is our last time together. What is it you'd like to know so you can go out there tomorrow and say, yes, not only is this all great, but I'm going to be able to use this, and what do I need to do to use it to make my life better? How can we help you achieve your yearnings?
There it is. There it is. And now, and again, you need some time to think about this. So, Gary and I will, continue to talk a little bit more as, so William has time to decipher in the chat messages that come in and push questions over to us.
Sure.
But just to reiterate, I mean, the character role that Gary and I both have, and it's our unique value proposition and our yearning, is really the sincere desire to make a difference in your business.
Yeah.
And with your business. I mean, I would really, while I'd like to believe that everyone on this call or that's come to these webinars over the last, 4 months is going to buy a toy from me. Or Gary, I'm sure Gary hopes that he meets them in in a marketing class at Moravian. But let's face it, that's really probably not going to happen. And the reason, so, you might say, well, why is Gary or Jim doing this? And really, it's because we have these inherent roles and desires in ourselves to care, to make a difference in the world. So that's, as much as we'd like to change that, or maybe, I don't want to say we would like to change it, it's just recognizing that's who we are and that's why we're doing this. So I just thought that kind of, wanted to put that spot in there and say, hey, we really want to know.
Exactly.
What you're
Hey, Jim, what might be instructive here at this point is, why don't we talk, I know you had some good examples and counter examples that we talked about in the past.
Yes.
And this might be a good taste, because I find that as a really good way for application to say, hey, this is what works, but that shows some common misconceptions also. I know you have one lined up, which might show, here's what people often think, and here's why it's not the case, so what you can do to tweak it to make it even stronger for you.
Yep.
Because I know you have a great story on that. I just think that maybe if we shared that story, that might help with this discussion.
Absolutely. I threw in, I was prepared just in case there wasn't a flurry of questions that were going to take us a half an hour to complete. I was prepared. And I wanted to share with you all a couple of examples. And I call this looking for the shortcut. I've worked with a company, or with a promotional consultant that did a lot of work for a company called HostGator.com. HostGator.com is a lot like a GoDaddy domain hosting service. You can see their advertisement, and they got this beautiful blue gator character, and his name is Snappy, by the way. So it wasn't, as a promotional consultant, you can kind of look at that and be like, well, naturally, they've got to have their very own, plush, snappy character. It would just be absolutely perfect. Well, and it's true, and they have it. They got their snappy character. We've made them custom for them, and it was like sort of like boom, this natural connection. But the reality of it is HostGator is a very large company, and it really came down to like, yes, they have that gator. Do they really understand the story behind Snappy and HostGator? I'm not 100% sold on that, but he's a very strong character. He's very prominent in the marketing, and the organization that they work with, they've got a very strong relationship with them, and they're able to, to sell them, 2,500 or 5,000 of these 10-inch plush gators. But you got to be saying, hey, hold on, wait a second. This is a billion-dollar company. They're only buying 5,000 of these things? What, you know, do they really understand the power of the character, of this character in the brand? Have they really written the story behind that character? Based on my research and what I know, no, they haven't. I mean, he's great. He looks great. He's awesome. It makes it such a natural fit. I mean, Post Gator, it's in the name. I mean, we don't have to think any harder than that. And that's where a lot of salespeople are going to stop. And I think part of the problem then, you know, and I put this underneath Post Gator, is I was telling this story recently at one of our regional trade shows, and I had I was doing a little breakfast, you know, seminar, and someone came up to me afterwards and said, you know what, I work with a technology company, and they kind of got this interesting logo, and I was thinking, boy, you know, kind of like the Host Gator thing, we could just put arms and legs on this little X, and then now it'll be a character brand. And I was like, whoa, okay, we're totally missing something here. And, you know, through working this out, you know, really kind of getting into the character, getting into, okay, we've got to dig deeper into this example. I call it X and Ed. What do they stand for? What sets them apart? And what I was able to do through, you know, researching their website, trying to understand, I mean, they have a very, I'll say, very clean-looking website. It's very technical, but it's kind of hard to understand what they really do. You know, as an extranet. You know, it's cloud computing, all that kind of good stuff. But can people really get connected with that and really get associated to cloud computing and a very clean website? Maybe not. But I think through my research, what I was able to uncover is they said, what makes them stand apart? And what they said is that we listen to our clients. I thought that was, okay, wow. Well, then how can we take listening and if that's one of their core character traits, how can we transition that into a character that people are going to identify with? And through talking with the promotional consultant, we understood that, hey, they do fishing events, and they do all kinds of really fun stuff. And we said, okay, well, if listening, what do we know out there? What could we borrow out there that's a good listener? So automatically, we thought of a dog. And we thought, okay, maybe at these fishing events, just an idea, let's present, you know, a stuffed German Shepherd dog, 8-inch size, and we'll say, you know, put the name of the company on that, and we'll say, you know, listening to your technology needs, listening to your network. Just pitch a couple creative, like, taglines, and then bring it back to them and saying, hey, we know that what sets you apart is your ability to listen, and this is a fun connection to that. Let's see where it goes. That's, you know, that's where it's sort of a situation where we're trying to, like, demystify, debunk kind of this character, and we're not trying to, you know, create this custom X guy that maybe not the cutest thing in the world and could take a whole lot of time and a whole lot of money to come up with, but really just looking into, like, who that client really is. Gary, any thoughts on that idea? It hasn't
a couple things. I'm sorry, John. A couple things that I totally agree with, and here's, again, for action items for everybody listening. What you did in this scenario, and here's what Jim and I talked about in the past, so everybody can understand. It's all too tempting for all of us in business to look at the obvious and say, oh, that has to be that. And I am a fan of the obvious, frankly. I think that's a key thing that we need to look at. But sometimes the obvious isn't really obvious. So, for example, just because X is in the name does not mean that that would make a good character, a good role, a good story for the company, unless the X was intentionally put in the name to begin with, in which case, then maybe it would. So what Jim was saying, and what you're saying, Jim, I think is absolutely the truth here. Whenever we talk to anybody as a client, one of the first things we have to do is not go in and say, hey, how many T-shirts do you want, sort of approach mindset. It has to be more along the lines of really doing our due diligence, really looking at their material, looking at their collateral, talking to the people that work there, and get a sense of what they are all about and how they see themselves, because the solution you're likely to come up with for promotion is probably not what they think it is, because oftentimes what they think it is isn't really the right answer. The better answer is the one that says, oh, this company is all about listening, and therefore, as you're talking about, how can we showcase that more effectively? And as you're selling your products, that is the mindset which I think too many of us forget because we get so caught up in the day-to-day, let's close the deal, make a sale mentality, let's take an order. And as we talked about in the first webinar, that's all well and good up to a point, because there's going to come a point where you won't be able to do that for much longer because someone will always underbid you, and that's not a good place to be. So the more you can have this genuine interest in doing your homework like you're talking about, it's something that I think needs to be stressed. Find out what it is and then give them the solution which they need, not what, is the obvious, oh, it's in your name, let's do it sort of thing.
Okay, great. Thanks, Gary. And actually, we got a flurry of questions here, so
excellent.
I'm going to go ahead and go through those. So we had Jamie Coggeshall send us some answers. To answer to question 2, he said, I will do the branding manifesto too. Love it, great suggestion. And then he says, how to get started. So I don't know how to get started, if that's the question.
Or with the branding manifesto. I'm not sure which way to spin that. Well, how to get started, let's take it both ways. I'll handle that with you, don't mind. I would say get started by writing your branding manifesto. And to get started on your branding manifesto, here's what I would suggest you do. Okay, I have the exercise I gave last time in conjunction with the second exercise. The first one is what I call the My Vision for You exercise, where you talk and say, what is my vision for my clients? What is my vision for the industry? What do I see for them that they may not even see for themselves? And what is my passion in all of this? That's one side of the coin. The second side of the coin to the brand manifesto is actually more interesting, and that's what ticks me off. It's what I call the personal rant. What ticks me off about this? Why am I so upset? Why does this habit, this notion, this philosophy, why does it bother me? What's wrong with this? What is the real problem here? And by exploring it, what you want to do is you want to identify what are the problems that you encounter and look for the real, what I call the subsuming solution. This is all outlined in my book and some other stuff, so if you really want to know, send me an email and I'll show you it. But the thing is, what really is the real problem here? So I'm against that. I'll give you my classic example I use with Disney, because that's one that we all relate to. Disney, Walt Disney World, everyone knows what they are, what they do, what they sell. However, what they're really selling is a really big problem, because they cater to families, they cater to everybody who wants to go there and do their theme parks and all that good stuff. They cater mostly to working parents who don't have time for their kids. Well, that's a common problem. But the real big problem they have identified was they were ticked off, that people are ticked off that, oh my gosh, I don't have enough time with my kids, I have to work to support them, and yet I am not going to be remembered by my kids because I've been working so much. How do I have quality time with my children that will create memories that will last for a lifetime, and even when I'm long gone, my children will still talk about that and remember me? That's the conflict, that's the inherent drama we've been talking about in this story. The manifesto here, in terms of writing the manifesto, says, I am super ticked off with the notion of I want to spend time with my family, but I can't because I have to take care of them. And, where's the solution to that? Because the more harder I work to take better care of my family, the less time I have to spend with them. And this is my rant. I can go on and on that for like 10 minutes easily.
Yeah, yep.
And so that's where we begin.
Yeah, well, I think actually, so this next question we got from Rick Fay, he says, how do you help a headstrong customer who thinks his product selections are always right move towards branding items that will work for them? Well, to me, I think that's right there is the beginning of a rant. I mean,
Absolutely.
Just asking that question.
That
is
is the beginning of a rant.
You think, and then this is something that I put into the article, but you're going to have, I think what you need to have is the story that says, you know what, hey, you can put a hammer in the hands of an unskilled labor, worker and ask them to build you a house too. This is what I do all the time. This is what we do every day. I've been educated in branding, and it's not as easy as selecting a product. There's a purpose behind it,
right?
And I think really get it. I mean, it sounds like Rick has got some emotion behind this, saying, I'm tired of just listening to my customers tell me what they want, and their selection's always right. Maybe that's not the customer for me, and really being that bold and saying,
Absolutely.
Go for it. If you know best, maybe I'm not the maybe
well,
I'm not the advisor for your
that's
business.
one way to do it, Jim. But Rick, I would also suggest, for my 2 cents, I agree with Jim entirely. That is the beginning of a really great rant. But the follow-up to that would be the development of your industry research and the creation of your core story, which is going to really propel you in the future, where you say, here's all the problems in your industry, here's the problems with this, here's why I'm pissed off about this, because what you don't get is boom, 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 boom. And then you elaborate upon what they don't get. Go back to this whole subsuming problem and show them what the real solution is. And that is going to really get you a lot of business. Show them the real problems with their way of thinking, and the more expert you become in their line of work and their business and the industry you sell to, the more resonant this is going to be for you. But we can get to that point. I'm pissed off because, Jim's right, you're pissed off for a reason. And use that and say, because I know this doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Here's the problem with this. And write that up. We package it. It becomes part of who you are. And now you get the respect you deserve, and you get the sales to go along with that.
Perfect. And then Jamie Coggeshall wrote in again another question. He said, the problem that I've heard is a client looks at you initially as a product seller and isn't open to your suggestions for use.
Exactly. Yeah, that Jimmy, it comes back to what we talked about before. You do want to be seen as the marketing maven in your industry. And with that being the case, this goes back to the brand manifesto, because the rant isn't enough. That's kind of the internal thing. But what you do with that is then you package that. You package that rant. You now become the industry spokesperson based upon your philosophies. You say, here's the problems with the industry. I'm going to write articles on this. I'm going to create special reports. When I call on a customer, I'm not going to try to sell you anything. I'm going to say, hey, I'm selling to local small business owners. Would you want to know the top 12 things that I found with the 12 local small business owners, what the problems that they're researching, how they can improve them? It's got nothing to do, I don't want to sell you anything. Here's just the problems in your industry and how you can get around them. And by doing this, you're positioning yourself as somebody who knows more about them than they even know about their own industry in terms of business, because most of these small business owners actually don't know business. That's the key. But by understanding that you understand it, they're no longer seeing you as the product pusher or, yeah, here, take my order. They're seeing you as a true partner in their success, because you are showing that you actually are the professional that you are.
Absolutely, definitely. Well, I don't see any other questions, coming through. One of the things, again, that I want to just emphasize on the last, on my slide that says looing instead of looking for shortcuts, apologize about that, is you see a company as a supplier in our industry, Bulldog Packaging, and they got a bulldog in their email flyer. Well, it's like, wow, that's great. I think we got to say, hey, let's look into this company because there may be an opportunity here. I feel through my research is that looking at their website is they've taken a shortcut. To me, I'm thinking Bulldog Packaging, okay, that must be some tough packaging. Well, when I go to their website and I read their story about them, it tells me about how big their warehouse is and how many different colors and assortments they do and all that. But I would like to, I think there's maybe a better, let's say, creation story that could be told about Bulldog Packaging and how, they've used their, how they've engineered their products to be tougher than anything else on the market. This is just my idea, but I think, and then, a Bulldog character then really can start to take, a presence, in their marketing and have a more meaningful impact, in the marketplace. So, again, I don't recommend taking a shortcut and saying, oh, just because they have a bulldog on their logo or in their website or their host gator, that means that they should be buying, a toy character. No, it's not. But I think there's an opportunity. I think there's an opportunity to go in there and educate on branding and on character and say, hey, I can help you maximize your exposure and your branding with that character that you already have out there. Right. So I think that's a good way to get started on is finding those companies that may have, I don't want to say misused, but maybe have some misconceptions of how that character can be used.
Jim, you're absolutely right about that. It's the understanding. I think maybe now is the good time to let everyone know what we can help them with on that for the special offers. Because what you have and what I have, I think for everybody listening here is something I think will really help them propel them along these lines.
Yep. Well, the first offer is for me, Artistic Toy. We have a character marketing sales playbook. My offer is a 22-page sales playbook that I developed a few years back with a good friend of mine, an industry guru. His name is Ted Davies, and for those of you that don't know Ted, he has sold over $500,000 in campaigns involving characters. Within this playbook, him and I, we work together to develop sample prospecting letters, case studies for presentation ideas, and templates to build your own one-page business plan. So again, this is all about application. If you're really serious about doing something with this real branding information, send me an email. I will send you over our Artistic Toy character marketing sales playbook.
That's terrific. And also for everybody listening, I already offered you copies of my books and 10 Steps Guide. What I have now, actually, I've been working on is nearly finished, so send me an email. I'll get it to you as soon as it's off the press, basically, is my 12-month The Brain Success Program Action Guide. It basically encapsulates all of these different things we're talking about here, how to identify your character, how to pick out the yearnings, how to create a core story for yourself, all the questions that you've been raising today. These are the sort of things that I talk about in this program, so that you have, month 1, work on this, month 2, work on this, kind of a detailed, action guide, step by step, checklist, do this, do this, do this, do this. If you follow all the steps and complete them until the end of 12 months, chances are really good your business is going to be on a whole different plateau than it is today. That's, I love checklists and action steps. So this is kind of a way to kick in the pants and say, all right, do this, do this, do this, do this. Here's your homework, now do it, sort of thing.
Absolutely.
And again, just send me an email if you're interested, and I will get that to you.
Great. I just put our contact information up on the screen. What this is about is it's all about the application. We want to get excited. We want to say there is information in here that we can use and that we can get started. Mm-hmm. Don't let this, just because this is the last webinar in the series, don't let this be the end of the journey for you.
Right.
This is only the beginning. There is more out there. We need to make this real in each of our businesses. So please email me, write me, call me, and I'll be more than happy to talk to you about anything related to your plan to go out and attack the world for character branding.
Sounds great.
All right, I think we've wrapped it up just under an hour. So that's I think that's a positive thing. I think we've also answered all questions that have been pushed over. William, do you want to double check to see if there's any unanswered questions?
Let's see here. I think I see one here. My customer base is in the safety arena, and our clients have a lot of issues, like how to stop hand injuries, backup safety, and driving equipment. How can I reach out to my customers, mostly through emails? That's
mostly. Okay. But it seemed like there's maybe two things. There's a client that they need some solutions. They need some creative solutions on promoting safety within their company. And then it's the communication medium, the marketing medium that this promotional consultant is using is primarily email. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I would think that I think the biggest thing, and correct me if you feel differently, Gary, is that we have to be selective on who we target. If this company that you're working with that has the safety issue, if they're a sizable company, they deserve some time, and I don't think you're going to be able to win over any type of real branding tactic via just email primary. I think it's going to take a multitude of phone calls. Email is an email is a start, is sometimes an easy way, right. But it's not a one size fits all. So you really got to dig into the relationship, set up meetings, host events, to invite that customer to hear more about you and why you're different, and then really get to the heart of what their safety issue is, and bring about some suggestions to help promote the importance of safety to
Yeah,
that organization.
along those lines, Jim, I agree for the most part with that type of business. Email is a great prospecting tool, and there's many ways to incorporate these philosophies into the prospecting. The easiest, simplest way is to identify the yearnings, write good headlines, and test them out. Basically, as a market researcher, I would always advocate trying different headlines and testing them. That's what all good copywriters do. And with this, that's going to come down to your copywriting ability, which will help raise the hand of whomever you're selling to. So we send out email. It's a prospecting tool, and there's many techniques and tricks you can do to try different headlines, different approaches, different types of ways to compose said email to see which one resonates the best. That could help you identify the conflict, the story, if you will. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to getting to know them at a much deeper level to really, sell to especially the larger clients. But for the mass market, yeah, it can work great. Just the good headlines, then good copy test with different aspects of your needs and see what works. At least from a prospecting perspective, it's not going to close the deal in most cases, but at least it will get you to be recognized for the better authority that you are.
So, and I think that would be part of identifying a niche, so that this promotional consultant saying, I'm really going to focus, I'm going to be the expert on safety campaigns.
Sure,
and
absolutely.
Really just,
and then there's any number of ways,
on that.
right, and there's any number of ways to expand this. You become the marketing maven within that industry along the lines of what we've been talking about. Email is a wonderful tool, but it should not be the lifeblood of everything in this type of industry. It's a good prospecting tool. It's good for communication. It's good for keeping in touch and updates and all that, which is wonderful. So it's good for that in terms of relationship. But if it's prospecting only, that's not going to close as many sales as you would with that personal, really getting to know them more deeply. It's like dating via long distance. It's hard to do.
Got it. All right. Well, I think that's about all the time we have. William, I think we've answered all of our questions. We do really appreciate the time that you've spent with us over the last several months doing this series on character branding. And please email us with any other questions, or if you'd like to take us up on any of our special offers.
Yeah. Good luck to everybody. This has been fun.
Yep.
And PPAI would like to offer a special thanks to our speakers, Jim Sochi and Gary Casquith, for sharing their expertise and ideas today. Today's webinar is copyrighted, all rights reserved by Promotional Products Association International. This concludes today's webinar. Thank you for your participation. To enable PPAI to continuously improve our product offerings to you, please take 2 minutes to complete the following survey that will direct you to your screen. Have a great day.